on, everyone. So Scream 6 really broke the mold on the standard tradition of Scream, right? Scream 6 did a lot of things that other Screams hadn't done, and kind of just, it was almost like a Reddit thread of like all the things that everyone wanted to see in a Scream movie, all kind of thrown together and put into this Scream film, right? Three killers, for example, early Ghostface reveal, things like that, right? Different settings, creative sets and placement of the characters and Ghostface attacks and stuff like that. A little darker tone, faster pace, Ghostface being more brutal and strategic in ways. And they really did, in a lot of ways, hit on that. I have a lot of issues with Scream 6, but I do think overall it is one of the better Scream movies. I have more than expressed my complaints with Scream 6, but it was more so of not the things that they attempted to do. It was more of just like the stuff like, oh, we got Scream 2's motive again, right? Like, can we get a little more creativity, right? Stuff like that. But when it comes to the upcoming Scream 7, and as we move forward into future Scream films, because there will be, whether it's a year or two or 10 or whatever, eventually we're going to end up seeing Scream 7, Scream 8. We know Scream 7 is at least in the works right now. When will it actually come out? It's yet to be seen. We haven't even gotten the official announcement yet. But with that said, Scream 6 and them kind of breaking the mold and changing things a bit, and kind of testing the waters. I've always said I will never knock a film or a franchise for testing the boundaries, right? For doing something different, for changing something, unless it's like unbelievably ridiculous, like Ghostface in space or something like that. Now, if that happens, then I'm gonna be like, well, you said you did this to yourself, right? But I'm talking about like the early Ghostface reveal, even though I know it wasn't the main killers, but still, right? Like that could have went bad. People could have been upset about that, or having the three killers. Maybe people, yeah, that's too many. You test things and you wait to see what the result is, but you never really know the result until the audience sees it. And then once the audience sees it, then you kind of have an idea of like what to expect going forward and what you can do and things that worked and things that didn't, right? Scream 5, for example, they got a lot of complaints, and even Radio Silence and Guy and the writers and stuff, they've all said that, they listen to YouTubers like myself, or, read the Reddit forums, or, look at people's Twitters and stuff to kind of gauge what is the consensus when it comes to, the Scream franchise. And a lot of things that were wrong with Scream 5, they fixed, corrected, and adjusted in Scream 7. Now, the reason I'm even bringing this up and talking about this is because when Scream 7 and the rest of the films come out, very likely they're going to continue to push the boundaries, because it begs the question of, did they all, because of Scream 5 and 6 and them being so well received from like audience scores and Rotten Tomatoes senses, some of them are like the highest rated in the Scream franchise, right? So with that, it kind of makes it so, okay, this is the new standard. This is the new formula, a very simple formula that they have to continue to follow. But Scream in a nutshell has always been relatively the same, right? You've always had that main focus character, that final girl, be Sydney and then Sam, but that's always been the premise. You have the main character, you have several other characters that kind of evolve around the main character, but everything ties in to that one focused character. You have some Ghostface attacks, you sprinkle a little bit of meta, you have the big reveal at the end, those are the things that are just kind of like the meat and potatoes of Scream, right? You have some epic slashing kills, Ghostface dialogue, and there you go, right? Those are the things that really kind of spark the Scream franchise. And with that, you can pretty much do whatever you want outside of that little box, right? But how much of that can you break, right? Like, do we get to a point where Scream just isn't about the meta anymore, right? Like Scream 6, like how much meta was in Scream 6? I mean, there were some things, but it wasn't like compared to other films, like even Scream 5, right? With like you had Dead Meat and the stab films, and then the tie into that, and you kind of had like this three level of meta-ness, right? So there are things that they can do, but at some point do they just say, okay, like let's just cut out the meta entirely and just get straight to the roots that is Scream, which is again Ghostface, that dialogue, that darker undertone, that slasher, all of those things. Like, do they start to kind of change the original format for Scream? Now, I feel based on kind of the consensus that I see from people, that if they just got rid of the meta stuff entirely, it wouldn't be really a big deal, right? Like, I think a lot of people are like, hey, like if you don't do the stab thing or you don't do X, Y, and Z, it's fine. But does that start turning it into something that it's not, right? Does that start turning Scream into your typical run-of-the-mill slasher film, right? Scream has always kind of been very self-aware in many ways. Does that kind of become something that becomes a noticeable change? Now, granted, it comes to the writing and stuff like that, and maybe people won't even really notice it, or maybe you just have like small little hits of meta rather than a full-fledged thing, right? Like you have the dialogue with Mindy and stuff, and she's, oh, we're in this, like, right, like trying to break that wall. Is that really necessary? Like, do you have to have that? I don't think so, right? And so, but my thing is, at what point do we start pushing the boundaries, and at what point does it become something that isn't Scream, right? Again, like I said, the Sydney character, the Sam character, do you continue that formula of like the final girl? And like, yes, you have the core group, right? You have your Gail, your Dewey, right? And then with the current adaptation, you basically got your Gail and your Dewey and your Randy if Randy never died. They're the same model, right? They're following the same exact path. Sydney and Sam are the main focus characters. Chad and Dewey are kind of like the goofballs that end up getting brutally slaughtered every single movie, but somehow make it out okay and give the thumbs up. But you ended up killing Dewey to establish that rule that nobody's safe, but you haven't killed anybody, right? And like Scream 6, like that is another problem that I had, was the lack of kills. Like, yes, they had the bodega scene and, you had several people die in that, but that doesn't count. Like, those aren't characters that we know about or we care about. Like, you could have not killed them and it wouldn't have mattered. Like, it's like, yes, it was cool. You got to see that scene. You had the opening scene, you had a couple people die. But again, like outside of, what was Jason, outside of his character, it like, you didn't care. We never got to get to know Greg. We never got to care. All we saw were the body part. Like, yeah, that was a cool shock scene in the moment. It was something different. It was something we haven't seen before. And I loved it for that. But it's not like a connectable character that is like, oh, you established this thing in Scream 5 that you completely went away from in Scream 6 when you should have continued that trend that you were building there. Right? And you kill Chad, and you kill Gail, and you kill Mindy. And it's like, whoa, what kind of film was that? But again, is that pushing the boundary too much to where it becomes something that it's not? Because we're so used and comfortable based on the Scream standard of, oh, every film we're gonna have the core group of characters survive. Dewey, Gail, Sydney. And now you have, the core four, and that just ties in again to the original in Scream 2, when Randy was killed. Wes Craven, that was his biggest mistake, he said, with the franchise, was allowing Randy to be killed, and audiences were furious about that. And it wasn't even so much that he was killed, it was the way and the manner in which he was killed. But they tried to do something different. They tried to break the mold and add that shock value, which I do. It bothers me that Randy died because I like the character, but when I take away and remove my bias, it made sense. And it was like, okay, I understand why they did it. I can't knock them for that. I wish Randy would have survived, but I understand the significance. You wanted that shock value. It was similar to what they did in Scream 5 with Dewey Riley. Right? You kill a core character and now nobody is safe. That was the idea with Randy, and they did the same thing with Dewey in Scream 5. But then you just kind of hard reset and kept everyone alive. So it's like, at what is too much and what is not enough? That's where I think the dilemma lies for Scream, and it's going to be interesting to see how this progresses going forward. How do they go about the approach of Scream, and do they continue to try to push those boundaries? And then if a boundary is crossed and it isn't perceived the way that they had hoped, do they just stop that and then kind of reset like with what we saw with Dewey? I don't like that. If you're going to do something, stick to your guns and continue to do it and wait till the whole thing or process plays out. If you're establishing a new line and you want that to be the new line, the new marker, then continue with that said line. Don't backtrack because of some, outrage and upset. People were going to see this movie regardless. People went into this movie expecting people to die, and they didn't. So that's my point. You pushed the line and said, this is the new line, no one is safe. And then you backtracked that line because of what? Radio Silence said some of it was they wanted a feel-good film. They didn't want to leave on a bad note. But you established the bad note. You established that bad taste in people's mouths. Keep giving them that dose until it becomes the norm. And then now you have this new standard, this new structure of Scream. Scream is going to have to evolve as time goes on as film. We've seen, like certain Halloween films and stuff like that. People are just like, man, I've seen this movie 1,000 times. And if you look, even Scream 5 and 6, they're the same movie. Like they're the exact same movie. Same premise, same idea, same struggle. The struggle with Sam and Tara is exactly the same as in Scream 5. They're literally the same movie. Scream 6 just did some different things to make it feel different and corrected a little bit of things that Scream 5 just got wrong. But it was still, in many ways, a carbon copy of the previous film. Like all 6 films, you can make an argument, followed the same exact formula or the same exact sequences throughout the course of the movie. And I just think at some point you're going to have to break that mold, even if it's in small doses and slightly. I liked that they killed Dewey and moved that line and changed the bar. It sucks that Dewey had to die, but I get it. The whole point was, same thing with Randy. This is a new thing. Nobody is safe. You see that Gale you like over there? See that shiny Gale? Oh, look, it would suck if somebody ran over and stabbed her and, like that kind of thing. That's the whole point. That was the idea. But then you backtracked when you should have kept going. You should have killed Gale. You should have killed Chad. It fit the story. It fit the plot. It fit everything. But then you abolished and completely erased all of it when you find out that they're both alive. And it's like, what was the point of that? Right? Like, why did you do that? Why did you make it? Why did you go from a film where anybody can die and nobody is safe to nobody can die? Literally, nobody can die. I mean, Tara was stabbed several times. Kirby was left for dead and somehow managed to survive. Right? I mean, Chad was brutally slaughtered in that movie and somehow managed to survive. If you're going to tweak the formula, you have to keep tweaking it. You have to stick to your guns. If you're going to do something, continue to push it, because that was the big problem. The biggest criticism I saw for Scream 6, outside of like the reveal being copy of Scream 2, the biggest consensus that I saw from people was like, nobody died, and how the hell is Chad still alive, right? Like, that was kind of everyone's thought. Even people that loved this movie and thought it was damn near a perfect movie. That was kind of the one, they were like, this movie is a 10 out of 10, but how did Chad survive and how come no one died? Like, that was the big argument. And it just didn't fit what they were trying to do with Scream 5. Didn't make sense. So now with Scream 6, you change some things. There are going to be expectations going into Scream 7. Do you break those expectations? And if so, you have to continue that and you have to carry on. But it ties back to my original thought, is at what point does Scream just become another slasher rather than Scream, the franchise that breaks the mold? Now, there's always ways to break the mold, and at the end of the day, I think people just want a good movie. Who cares about all the ins and outs? Just give me a good movie. I don't, like, if you have to remove the meta elements of it entirely, but it's some just like, wow, like, that was incredible. If it's one of them, then fine. I don't care if it evolves into a run-of-the-mill slasher film. That might be what Scream needs. This dark, gritty, just brutal type, elevated, smart type slasher. And I'm all for that. I am. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? Do you think that they're going to have to keep breaking the mold? Do you think if they do you think that at some point it'll become something that it's not? Are you okay with that? Are you okay with it maybe evolving in just like a black and white type of slasher? Everything that I talked about, I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions. So let me know down in the comment section below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. It helps me out a lot. Lets me know you enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. If you're not subscribed to the channel, what are you doing? Hit that subscribe button, followed by the bell notification. Stay up to date with all things Scream. Join this wonderful community and all of our discussions. See you all in the next one. Thank you.